layoffs are good. Layoffs are down now. Layoffs are down to pre-recession levels. We are no longer hemorrhaging jobs, but we're not hiring either. So if you have a job, you're no more likely to get laid off right now than you were before the recession started. But if you don't have a job, it's very, very tricky to find one because hiring is down so low still.
Well, that's not the way, since I feel with, because we're in Texas and we have lots of public jobs and we're about to hit that big time.
Wait, say that again? You're about
in Texas where we have the fourth worst deficit in the country, we have a lot of government jobs, but also have that nonprofit.
That's the one place that's still hemorrhaging, and actually an increasing hemorrhaging is exactly that in state and local jobs, where the budget fights are starting. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end of it. That's okay. And then, so next one, so that's all people without jobs, and this is just what's going on with wage growth for people with jobs. And this, I won't spend too much time on this, but this is just wage growth over the course of the recession. And what we see is when there are no outside opportunities for people with jobs, employers don't have to pay substantial wage increases to keep the workers they have. And when there's a queue of workers around the block for every job opening, they don't have to pay substantial wage premiums to get the workers that they need. And so the persistent high unemployment that we've seen puts huge downward pressure on wages. And so you can just see what's happened to wage growth over the course of the recession, which further exacerbates the problem because that means families have less to spend in the economy. It puts downward pressure on demand for goods and services, which means jobs grow more slowly. So this is just part of the difficult cycle. Okay, where we're headed, given all that, these are unemployment projections. So these are annual unemployment rates. You can see the early 80s recession, the early 90s recession, the early 2000s recession, and then the Great Recession. In 2010, the unemployment rate was 9.6%. That's real data. The rest of these are projections. These are projections from economy.com. They're very similar to other private projections, to the Congressional Budget Office projections. Everyone has kind of the same thing. The interesting thing, I think, here, 5 years, 2012, 5 years since the start of the Great Recession, an unemployment rate of 8.3%, still higher than the worst annual rate of the early 90s recession. 2013, 7.3%, still higher than the worst annual rate of the early 2000s recession. We will start to dip down below these recessionary levels around the second quarter of 2014, 3 years from now, according to basically everyone's projections. And so while this is going to feel good, we are going to be adding jobs. This will be good. This will be clear improvement. We're still going to be in very recessionary territory level-wise for another 3 years. And these projections don't show it getting down to pre-recession unemployment rate even by 2015. So we're in for a long haul, and this also shows, this breaks down that same thing by race. So you can look at annual unemployment rates for whites, Hispanics, and blacks from 2000 to 2010. This is real data. The overall unemployment rate in 2010 was 9.6%, but for blacks it was 16%. For Hispanics it was 12.5%. That's real data. And then these ratios of the unemployment rate of different racial and ethnic groups stay pretty constant over time. So apply these historic ratios to the projections on the previous slide to get an idea of what we can expect by race going forward. 2012 is circled there. And so you can see in 2012, the previous slide showed the overall unemployment rate is projected to be at 8.3%, but it will still be at 15% for Black Americans, and it will still be near 11% for Hispanics. So we'll be at serious crisis levels in racial and ethnic minority groups for a while longer.
What underlying dynamics in the economy support the projection of a decline in unemployment the next 3 years? Without going into great detail, what basically is improving that is going to be providing those jobs?
So some of the headwinds that we have that are pushing back strong growth will be working themselves out. So the one of the things that's been keeping us from having strong growth is continued declining housing prices. The housing market is going to start resolving itself soon. So that will no longer be a headwind.
Why do you see that?
Well, they're gonna hit. That's a good question. There's the people who study housing
Wait till
markets.
they eliminate the mortgage deduction.
Right, exactly, and that will not help it. Right. So people who study the housing market, I don't do this myself, but show that housing prices are still inflating, but not by that much, and so there's not too much more to fall, and so and there's fewer people with. Now we're back to roughly normal amounts of homeowners who are not already in foreclosure. We have huge numbers of people who are in foreclosure, but we're down to relatively normal amounts of other people who are delinquent on their mortgages. So we no longer have this huge backlog of people who are delinquent on their mortgages and then might get dumped into the foreclosure situation, which then further undermines wealth and the financial sector. And so that headwind is going to be going away soon. We will eventually have state and local budgets that won't be in such a crunch, so that headwind will be abating soon. As the sort of virtuous cycle takes hold, it has already, where we're growing, we're starting to add jobs. That will mean people have more money, there's more economic security, consumer spending, and the business investment starts to grow stronger and stronger, so that will help. So it's just more, the economic engine is starting to move. We are growing, we are adding jobs, and as it takes hold, and these things that are pushing against growth start to abate, it will get stronger. There's other dangers out there. Like right now, energy prices are going through the roof. If that stays around much longer, that could throw us into another recession. So another technical recession. Right, we're technically out of this recession. We actually have been technically out of this recession for about a year and 20 months, which I haven't felt like we're out of this recession for that long. But if energy prices could end up being another huge headwind.
In Texas, we're actually, while we're having challenges with our government deficit, our controllers are reporting increased sales tax. So that's another, we're seeing that people are buying.
Consumer spending is picking up, and that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Business investment in equipment and software is back to pre-recession levels, and that is great news. Like businesses aren't yet hiring very strongly, but they are investing in things that they had let go for the last 3 years, like equipment and software. So it's starting to move. But it's going to be a long time because we're in such a deep hole.
Do you have any information on projected changes in labor force participation?
Oh, I don't. So the labor force participation, that some of that, a very small portion of it, is going to be natural declines because as the baby boomers cross over retirement age, there will be I'm picturing that retirement age line of 65, right? Okay. I have to think of a better way to say it. How should I say that? As they retire. Right. Then we will see a natural slight decline in labor force participation, but that's not going to be the dramatic piece of it. So it will largely return to its pre-recession level with some natural declines because of the aging of the workforce. Okay. All right, and then this just shows, these are employment projections for 2012 by state. We still have enormous variation by state. And you can see the 10 highest unemployment rates projected in 2012. You can see there will still be 5 states in 2012, 5 years after the start of this recession, that still have an unemployment rate over 10%. And the other thing is, there will only be 3 states who have an unemployment rate of less than 5% in 2012. And just to remember, this seems like a lifetime ago, but in 2007, the national unemployment rate was 4.6%. As a nation, we were below 5%. And in 2012, there will be only 3 states projected to have an unemployment rate of less than 5%.
That's because nobody lives there.
And also there is, the plain states have been the ones
Many
that
have
fared the
crossed
best.
over.
And everyone's crossing over.